I'm here today with Giles Male from Fullstack Modeller, and we're going to be talking about what employers are looking for in candidates for financial modeling roles and data analysis roles. So with that, let's get right into it. Giles?
Yes, and just to kind of be really open with the level of planning you and I have gone to, John, we've figured out that we've got 4 questions we're going to ask each other to make sure we don't go off on complete tangents. One of us is going to ask the question and the other will answer it, and then we're going to switch that around, and we might even mess that up. So I don't really know, but let's just see how it goes. So why don't I kick off with our first question, and you have to answer this first. So starting off with, how would you describe the general state of the hiring market now for data analytics?
Yeah, perfect. So I'll talk about it largely from the perspective of the US, just because that's the market I'm most familiar with. So in the US right now, generally the labor market is pretty tight. You could describe it as that. The unemployment rate overall is really low, and then especially for kind of people in tech, and even more so in these data roles, we're hearing from employers it's really hard to find talent right now. And I think a lot of people who are trying to get into the field will find that surprising, because they're saying it's really hard to find entry-level jobs right now. And kind of the nuance there is the employers are still really not willing to compromise on no experience. At least in their head, what they are thinking of in an ideal candidate is they want somebody that can hit the ground running and has done this type of stuff before. So we'll talk a little bit more about kind of how you tackle that cold start problem if you haven't had a job in data before, but you want to land that one and they're looking for somebody with experience. So I'd say that's kind of the big sort of a weird backdrop to the whole job market right now. And then one other thing I wanted to add is remote is kind of a pretty hot topic people all want to hear about. We're definitely seeing in this type of work that remote is okay, and employers are, when they're coming to Maven, are asking for employees. They want referrals, and they're saying remote is totally fine. Most of the time, they're talking about it as remote forever, like this person will never have to come into the office if they don't want to, so it's not even one of those hybrid roles. Some of the nuances there are, at least most of the people we're talking to, they're still saying we want them to be in the US. So even though it's a remote role, they want US citizens. There's, some complications there with visas. And then some of them, I'd say more like maybe 20% care about time zones still. And that could be, they want you to be on the West Coast and in that exact time zone, or it might be like 1 hour off. But I'd say most of them don't even really care about the time zone. So remote is definitely here to stay. I think it's great personally, and to us, it opens up a really wide range of talent that we couldn't access before for people who, for whatever reason, either they don't want to live in cities, they've never had the opportunity. Now these jobs can get spread wide, and we can find talent everywhere. So I think it's great. What do you think about this, Giles? How would you describe the financial modeling job market?
Yeah, well, I mean, the honest answer is, in part, I probably don't know enough to comment broadly. You've just done a fantastic job for the US market, but to give a bit of context to that, I've just spent a month in Mexico City as a semi-digital nomad. So part of my own goal for my own life is to be completely remote with my work. What that gave me exposure to is a group of remote workers who do this sort of digital nomad lifestyle. And that's not just in financial modeling, it's in marketing, in people that run their own businesses, in the data science space, data analytics, all of this stuff. So the one thing I can comment on, which is probably something for millennials like me and Gen Xers to think about, is that the Gen Z generation are relentless, and that's in terms of how they're training themselves and upskilling, how they're demanding work in a certain way. So, I was meeting 22, 23-year-olds who demanded fully remote work lifestyles straight out the back from university. and they are not stopping. These guys are skilled and driven, and they are able to pick up work from all over the in terms of the job market for the UK, for example. But what I would say to anyone that's my sort of age, as a millennial or beyond, is you have to stay up to date with your skill set, because the Gen Z group are coming to really kind of test all of us, I think.
Yeah,
So,
I love it. That's great. Yeah, as somebody who's remote right now, as we're filming this, I love it. It's great for lifestyle, and opens up a lot of doors. So fantastic.
Well, it does, you know, and you kind of touched on the fact that, you know, if these people are as skilled as I think they are, and they're able to pick up work
Yep.
pretty much anywhere in the world. I appreciate you said there's a bit of a kind of bias towards people in the US in your industry, but yeah, I think that puts the pressure on everyone else to make sure they're really staying up to date with whatever it is that you can do to add value in your industry. Which brings us really nicely onto our second planned question, which is, what do you think the hottest skills actually are? So again, for your side, that's really from a data analyst's perspective.
Awesome. Yeah. So, all right, I can go first on this one. So I'd say it's kind of the similar drumbeat that you've probably heard from us for a while: SQL, Power BI, Python, and Excel. I kind of talk through those a little bit. You know, SQL, whether you want to be a data analyst, data scientist, or a database administrator, data engineer, all of those job descriptions include SQL. You have to have it. Data is just stored in relational databases, and if you can't get it out, you're a lot less versatile, and you're relying on other people. So, you know, you don't want that to be your only skill, but if you can pair that with other things like data visualization with Power BI, or you know, even in Excel, it's a really handy one that totally increases your flexibility. Power BI, the reason I say that one is we just have a lot of people that are coming to us looking for Power BI talent, and historically Tableau was the absolutely far and away leader in the data viz market, and the past few years Power BI has just been totally eating market share. It's cheaper to get licenses for your company. It's really come up to maybe not quite feature parity, but pretty close, and it's great with integrating with Excel, which people have had for a long time. So they have a lot of advantages, and the talent pool just has not caught up yet still. And I probably said this exact same thing a year ago, and it still hasn't caught up yet. You know, so we are just always trying to find people who are great with Power BI. That's what recruiters and companies come to us looking for. Python, another one that's probably not going to be too surprising. It's kind of a data analyst, data scientist hybrid role there. Even it can be used as a programming language too. So it's a very flexible one that kind of, regardless of which of those jobs you're interested in, Python is super, super hot in the market right now. So we'd recommend that. And Excel, it sort of in a different category, where having Excel on your resume, I think it's never going to be the thing that gets you the job, or even maybe gets you the interview. But if you can't do it, you're going to be in trouble. And it's sort of expected as table stakes for any of these data roles. Every company uses Excel basically, or Google Sheets. A lot of them use both. So it's good to know those things. And I'll just give one quick example. One of the women who just finished up our boot camp, and then she ended up getting a job about 3 weeks later. Her interview, she was given an Excel spreadsheet with a whole bunch of data, and on the spot had to go through a data cleaning exercise. And so if you think you can get a data job without kind of having this table stakes skill, you might get really, really just surprised in an interview, because it's still such an easy thing that you can just give somebody on the spot. You can see how they're working and manipulating with it. So it's I'd say that's not an uncommon experience. So those are the technical ones, at least on the data analyst, data scientist side. What about on the modeling side, Giles?
Yeah, I also just realized, we said we'd alternate the questions. I mucked that up straight away, didn't
Oh
I?
yeah, we could switch next time.
That's fine. So I think so. I wasn't comfortable just trying to share this from my opinion because I've been involved with Fullstack for 15, 16 months now, and I was a consultant before that. So I actually went out to the Fullstack community and asked them some of these questions, and I got some really good answers back. So I'll try to summarize them as best I can. The general sense was that for financial modelers, the fundamental skills probably haven't changed that much. You are looking at Excel predominantly, and really you're looking at, for pure financial modelers, you need to be able to build three statement models from scratch and understand the kind of accounting principles behind that. So those fundamental Excel skills and accounting understanding is very crucial and probably hasn't changed. What has changed, I think, is an understanding that simplicity is crucial for financial modeling. So that my business partner Miles at Fullstack has told me stories about when he first learned VBA, and you're so excited to have learned this new cool skill that you start using it in everything that you do. And VBA, as an example, can be a bit of a black box. So I think there's a better understanding now that black boxes aren't great, and that striving for simplicity, even when you've got to do complex modeling, is very, very important. And it's probably, supported by the kind of prominence of standards like FAST and SMART and the ICAW. So yeah, simplicity and an understanding of that being crucial is I think something that's relatively new. Data management is something else. So I'm calling it data management specifically, not data analytics, because I think for financial modelers, and if you think of all the conversations you and I have had about what it means to be a financial modeler or a data analyst, and can you really master both, for the majority of people, I do think financial modelers have to have a fundamental ability to manage data. And that might not necessarily mean learning coding languages, but it does mean, in Excel, for example, having a basic understanding of how you can bring data into Excel or to Power Query and manage it, to manipulate it, to filter it, to extract what you need, to use it in different ways is really crucial, especially in those sort of FP&A roles and management accounting roles where you tend to deal with, rolling actuals month by month. And that really brings me on to my last point, which is being able to build flexible models. And one of our members, Patrick, brought up this idea that if you need to use a model more than once, you have to be able to build something that's reliable and flexible. You can move forward dates if you're bringing through actuals period by period, and that the model is still going to hold itself together. So yeah, I think in a nutshell, the idea that simplicity is important, some sort of data management, and the ability to build flexible models that anyone can use, not just the person building the models, is probably where I'd go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Obviously the data management side resonates with me a lot. We don't actually have many financial modeling customers on Maven, but we have a number of FP&A departments that have signed up with the product on our team training because of that exact thing. They're being tasked with getting more into the data, more into the infrastructure, more into the automation, and they're coming to us for that. So it totally resonates with that, and all kinds of FP&A accounting. We're seeing that too.
And awesome. I think the switch is really around what data you're using, and again, when you and I have had to kind of step back and reflect on what it means to be a data analyst or a financial modeler. I think the moment you're starting to deal with really big data sets, or you're having to do a lot of manipulation with data, then you are straying more into your territory of you're doing the work of a data analyst rather than a financial modeler, possibly.
Yeah, and I've heard of there was one of our customers talked about it this way. They said, in the past, you might just be tasked to look at the financial statements, kind of the summary balance sheet, cash flows, income statements, things like that. And now they're being asked to actually go into the database, find cost drivers, see where there's inefficiency at a much more granular level than before too. and they're being held accountable to that because their competitors are doing it. So it's really interesting how that's developing.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Cool. So yeah, that's great. So hopefully that helps people understand some of the technical skills that they can try to flex for each of these roles. How about the non-technical skills, Giles?
So again, I went out to the community with this question, the Fullstack community, and it was pretty consistent. You know, a lot of this is around storytelling, and it goes back to maybe the typical personality types that you might expect to see in a lot of these sort of finance and analytical roles, who are brilliant problem solvers, but then quite often will struggle when it comes to sharing the insights of whatever the work that they've done is. So I think that there's also kind of a move now where it's kind of expected for the modern finance professional and, you know, somebody in financial modeling, that unless you're comfortable being the techie for the next 20 years of your career, you have to be able to communicate effectively. And a lot of the time that is being able to present a story and you know, share that, whether that's kind of face to face presenting in front of a group, or being able to put together you know, a presentation pack that kind of leans on a lot of the data visualization techniques that you and I probably know about. So that's one area. I think another thing is actually being commercially astute, like actually being able to step back and understand the business. And again, this came from a member who was saying, and I can resonate with this completely, you can get very technically gifted people who will do exactly what you've asked them to do. But to get to that next level, you really want people that are able to kind of see the bigger picture themselves and start to be proactive about what would help in terms of whatever analytics they're doing. So that would be my answer from a financial modeling perspective. What about for you and data analysts?
Yeah, I think it was fun for me to hear that answer, because I know in the past we've talked about how in some ways our roles are very different, and then in some ways they're very aligned. And I think those were two of the biggest things that I have on my list, is communication and business acumen, and for the exact same reasons. And I remember, I think, talking to you before. Folks in your training program go through like a persuasive writing course. Is that still the case? Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the first things we do. Writing's one area that we look at, which was a real kind of eye opener for me, actually, and then other things around kind of, you know, PowerPoint pack principles and things like that. But yeah, you're right, it's still there.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that's honestly, from our standpoint, that's still an area where we could improve our product offering, is adding more like that persuasive writing, how to give effective presentations, because it is really true when you're talking about like a very junior analyst role. It's go pull this specific data from the database to me. You know, you get a command from a superior and they tell you what to do, and just knowing how to use the tools is important. But in order to become effective at a senior level, you need the business acumen to know the right questions to ask, how you might answer those questions. And once you answer those questions, you have to be able to present this in a compelling way and convince other people in your organization to take action based on it. And that's where the really, really impactful players make a difference. You know, there's using Power BI is great, right? Using it to find some efficiency improvers for your business, and then fire up your team members to actually drive the change. Like, that's the A+ player that everyone's looking for. And so it's just really, really important. The other little things that I have are pretty similar, but problem solving. We'll often talk about that, and that can be technical problem solving. It can be, you know, doing things like trying to uncover insights in the business would sort of, I would say, go into that category. And then somebody who's a good cultural fit too, I think is really important. And most companies are really wising up to how important that is, and how, you know, a couple of bad apples that don't really fit can really take away from a culture. And then those people that are just like the amazing energy, you know, we have a couple of those people at Maven, and it's not me. I don't think I fall into that category, but I benefit from having some of these just fantastically positive people, and it's infectious, and it helps you keep going. So I think those are some of the things that we would be looking for too, and I'm sure those apply on the financial modeling side as well.
And do you have a sense, because I know we'll talk about sort of the boot camps that you guys have done and you're doing, but when you talked about those people that have that ability to share their insights, do you have a sense that a lot of data analysts are lacking in that area, or what have the people been like that kind of come to you for the boot camps?
Yeah, I think it's something that kind of not a lot of people are good at intuitively, and it really comes with practice. And so one of the things we do is throughout our bootcamp, we teach you Excel, and then we have you complete a project that's a very deep dive with Excel, and we have you present it, and we give you feedback on it, and then rinse and repeat with SQL, Power BI, Tableau. And just having that practice is really important, especially for a junior person. And like we said, it's important on the job, and it's also really important in the interview phase of the job to be able to communicate your work, to show some of these projects that you've done, because like we talked about before, the employer, they want an entry level person, but they are also saying we want to see the work that you've done. We want to be confident that you can do it, and just telling me that I'm great with Excel, I'm great with Power BI, is so weak compared to walking me through a project. And one example, there's if people are in the Maven audience, you probably are familiar with Clay Cooper, and he completed a whole bunch of these very detailed Power BI projects. Actually got discovered by an employer because of sharing it publicly, and then during the actual interview process, the final stage was walk me through this project. Talk to me about the decisions you made, why you picked these KPIs, how you connected the data, and just think about that from an employer perspective. Getting to see that in action is like, yep, I get what this person's all about. I can really trust what they can do, and I can, in a concrete way, understand how it might apply to my business, versus the person that's just got some words on a resume. And I promise, trust me, ask my friend, I'm really good. It's just so much better. So yeah, definitely, we see that a lot.
I think it's my turn on the questions, and I'm scared I'm going to get this wrong twice out of 4 attempts. But I think it's me. That actually really nicely leads on to what we planned for the final question, which was around what do we see employers doing to assess the skills, essentially. So do you, based on what you said, I'm going to remind myself to talk about portfolios. But do you want to go for it first?
Yeah, sure. So I would say 2 pieces to this. Doing the things that you can do pre-interview to kind of share your skills, because assume before you get hired, any employer is going to try to do some quick background look into you. They'll be reading a resume that you've sent them. They're definitely going to go look you up online. They're definitely going to go to LinkedIn and just do like a gut check of, does this person look like they are a data analyst or a financial modeler? And if the answer is yes, continue. And if it's a no, it's probably a very hard and very quick pass, and move on to the next candidate, because they're inundated, right? So in terms of that kind of pre-interview step, I think it's about building a brand, knowing the places where they're going to find you. Like LinkedIn is what I mentioned. I think that's kind of the obvious place that you have to have really buttoned up, because what you want them, when they see your LinkedIn profile, to go, oh yeah, I see this person's all about data analysis, all about financial modeling. I see some projects here they can show. I get a sense for the work that they're doing, versus, your competitor who hasn't done that. You're the one that's going to be getting the call for the interview, and they're not. So I think that piece, like the pre-interview marketing yourself, building a brand and networking, is huge. And then in the interview itself, we can think of it as kind of the technical piece, the problem solving piece, and the background. So So the technical screening, depending on what's the most important thing for the job, like let's say it's SQL, you're probably going to write some SQL code. You might be doing that ahead of time with a hiring manager, using some sort of a third-party tool that's meant to assess your skills and grade your code. Or you might be doing it live in session with the person who might be your boss who wants to evaluate your skills. But either way, there's sort of no way around that. You need to have those skills, especially in the data analysis role. This is pretty common to do these days, and it's really important. We'd much rather hire somebody that can already pass this type of thing and has these skills than the person who's promising they can learn it, right? So consider that as like, you got to do that. When it comes to background, they'll be thinking about trying to understand sort of what you've been doing, what you're all about, what gets you excited. And this is a really good time to work into things like showing off that you have a good business acumen, showing off that you're a great communicator. Like these should be your goals when you're having these more, we'll call them conversational interviews, where they're just sort of asking you questions. Tell me about yourself. Talk to me about your experience. And you want to be working in showing off your excellent communication skills, ideally talking about the projects that you've worked on that are relevant, because this is a great opportunity to sort of steer and pivot the conversation into those things that you can put on display. And then the one that's really been kind of a deal breaker, either pushing people over the finish line or hurting candidates lately that we've been talking to students, is doing some kind of a quantitative case study with problem solving. And I've always loved this method of interviewing because for me, it's one of the best ways to understand what it's really like to work through a problem with somebody. And so, there's a couple of ways that we do that. One is like a market sizing type estimation problem. Like you might say, how many light bulbs are there in the UK, right? And you would then talk through how you estimate that type of a thing. And the goal there is to get you talking out loud about your thought process, so I can start to see, do you make logical assumptions? Are you sort of using data effectively? Can you communicate what you're doing to me? And just generally, how does this feel working through this problem with you? If it's fun, it's usually a good sign, and I want to work on other problems with you. If it's brutal, if you're bad at communicating, if you're like the worst energy in the world, if you're getting really frustrated at times, it's a big negative, and so that's one example. There may also be ones where you're solving sort of a simulated business problem for the company, and you've been given a high level scenario, and we'll ask, how would you start diving into the data to figure out what's really going on and make recommendations? And same idea. We're just looking for getting you to talk out loud, trying to get inside your head, understand your thought process, and figure out, like, is this somebody that we think is good at problem solving and we would be excited to work with? So that's kind of how I'd recommend it. What do you think for the financial modeling side? What are people looking for?
Yeah, and just before I answer that I love the light bulb challenge. I think I was asked pretty much that exact same question, and it just makes me think back to some people that I know who have been brilliant at their jobs, brilliant at their work, but under that sort of interview pressure, they absolutely fall apart with questions like that. And I don't know whether you've seen this, but it's almost like a bit of interview technique where the exact answer almost doesn't matter, but if you sit there and you stumble over your words and you come up with nothing, then you're not going to do very well. So just having that ability to kind of deal with the pressure within an interview situation and say something that's logical to a certain extent is probably quite important. I think so. There's a couple of things, and again, this was picked up by the Fullstack members when I asked them these questions. Some sort of bespoke modeling test has always been, an option. I used to see that in job roles that I went for and at companies that I worked for, where an individual company will put together a kind of bespoke Excel test or a modeling test. And it was always really interesting, and I may have mentioned this the last time we spoke, that that really filtered out people that just said proficient in Excel. You know, if you know what you're doing, then you'll be able to get through those modeling tests. And it was amazing how many people said they were proficient, but really fell apart when they had a relatively simple test to work through in Excel. More and more now, I think certifications are important. And for example, we at Fullstack, we're very, very supportive of what the Financial Modeling Institute do. The FMI is a 3-stage certification program and very aligned with what we're trying to do at Fullstack. The biggest difference is that we do all the detailed training, and really they're focused on the test and the certification program. But even the first level of FMI's certification journey, the AFM, is impossible to pass if you don't know how to build a pretty comprehensive 3-statement model from scratch. So that's been a little bit of a game changer, really, because if an employer sees that, and clearly some employers are now looking for it, that's evidence that you know what you're doing to a pretty high standard already in financial modeling, let alone if you get to the second or the third level of FMI. So, and I'd like to think, Fullstack's a very young company, but as our members get out there with their fully accredited, badges and certificates as well, that being a Fullstack member will have that same sort of kudos and gravitas in the industry. Beyond that, presentation, again, sometimes our members seem to have been asked to actually present, whether that's taking data and doing some modeling, or just, being asked to do the presentation part alone, but proving that you can do more than just the number crunching, I think, is something that we're seeing a bit more of. The one idea I had, and again, this is really based on my experience, being surrounded by digital nomads. I was around, a very talented copywriter and in Mexico, and she could turn to a portfolio of her work. And it's something that it dawned on me that we don't really do this in the modeling industry. For industries like marketing, copywriting, you can literally turn to all of this stuff that you've produced over the years before. And I think that might be quite a nice idea for us in the modeling industry. I don't know whether you have some sort of equivalent of that already in data analytics, but yeah, it's something we're lacking.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing point. Like thinking about creative types of people, like a designer, they have Behance, Dribble, places where they've built these very large portfolio sites that are custom built for those types of folks to just show off their work. And everybody who talks about data, people like us who are educators, training, are saying that same thing. You need to have these projects, this portfolio. And then when folks say, well, where do how do I share this? How do I host it? It's crickets, because there really hasn't been a great solution. But I predict in this coming year, in 2022, one of the major training providers will build a custom solution for this, for the data folks, that is purpose built and will nail the solution, because everyone's talking about it. So I think that one's a pretty easy prediction for me. I think that's going to happen.
Good. And yeah, it kind of links back to what I was saying about, millennials and Gen Xers having to keep up with the Gen Zs. That's, again, one thing that you could argue millennials should have over Gen Zs is years of additional experience. So being able to present that effectively, there might be issues with sensitivity sometimes, but I don't think it would be that hard to desensitize work you do as an analyst or a financial modeler to showcase and say, look, this was the project, this is the work that I had to do. To your point earlier, like, talk me through what you had to do. You could almost preempt that with a portfolio and say, look, this is what I had to do. This is what I came up with as a set of outputs and visualization slides or whatever it is. That feels like it could be that's something that would make you stand out, I think, to most employers, if you came proactively with that information ready.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is great. So I think we're through all of our main questions. Time for the shameless plug portion of our discussion. So, I think, as folks know, we're both educators, and we both have new cohorts that we're recruiting for. Giles, tell us about the Fullstack Modeler cohort that's currently open for enrollment right now.
Yeah, so we open quarterly, and we are still open at the moment. We'll be open till close of play on the 25th. We bring people in these cohorts because it allows us, once we've done that, to just shut off externally and really focus on the people that sign up with us. So Fullstack is a training platform. It's a self-paced training journey that covers fundamentals of Excel, advanced financial modeling, and then data visualization and a bit of Power BI. But it's also a community. So through this platform that works a little bit like you might expect Facebook to, you join us, you set up a profile, you can interact with anyone else in the community. There's live events going on every week. And the nicest thing that we've seen since we started is members helping each other. So we very often, pretty much on a weekly basis, see members saying, hey, I've got to do this. I've got to use Power Query for the first time. I've got to build this consolidation model. Has anybody done this before? And you just get members from all over the world going, yeah, I did that a year ago. Like, let's jump on a Zoom, or here's the model that I can cut out for you and walk you through. So it feels like, I'm very biased, obviously, but it feels very unique what we're doing with this community and getting this global support network together. People sign up. I can't remember if I've said this, but you sign up for a 12-month membership with us initially. There's group booking discounts if people are looking to put teams through. But it's 12 months for a reason, because it's a comprehensive journey. You come out the other end transformed. There's no way you go through our program and you don't, really upskill yourself quite significantly. So that is my shameless plug, and I will hand over to you, because I know you're doing boot camps as well as your sort of online training.
Yeah, that's great. And we've had a couple of students come over who have done the Fullstack program and who are Maven customers as well, and have had just fantastic things to say. And I think that speaks to something we didn't talk about much today, but we've talked about before, how the skills are really complementary. So if you can be both person in one, you're just this really versatile person. So yeah, we're similarly, we offer a program structured quite similar in some ways to Fullstack. It's a lot of self-paced courses in a community-based setting. We also have some live components that we have, but we try to be sort of light on the live components, because this particular one is geared towards people who want to learn part-time. So think 10 to 15 hours a week is the commitment that we're asking for people over the course of 24 weeks. And really, most of the people who are enrolled, their goal is to switch from some other career to a data analyst or business intelligence role. So we've got folks from accounting backgrounds, we've got folks from marketing backgrounds, we've got people from all over. It's an international cohort that we've got, and this one kicks off on March 2nd. We're probably going to do another one in September, but not totally committed to the date yet. And what else can I tell you about it? It takes you through Excel, SQL, Power BI, and Tableau. We do a lot of things like resume review, getting your online profile buttoned up, teaching you how to network, how to look for job opportunities, walking you through interview prep, that type of thing. So it's sort of a pretty hands-on approach to trying to get you ready to launch this career. And there are some people who already actually have the career they want, and they just want to be better with data. So that's kind of another use case. I'd say that's maybe 15, 20% of the students, but more like 80-ish% are trying to pivot their careers right now and are looking for help from us. So we're still taking applicants. The other thing I'll say is anybody who mentions Fullstack Modeller on their application, we'll give you our best rate, which we'll take 25% off the tuition, which that's a deal that's closed for everybody else. But if you're seeing this video, we'll keep that one for you. So hope to see some folks there. Go to mavenanalytics.io and check out in the top nav, click on Learn, and you'll see Data Analyst Bootcamp. You can put in a free application and talk to one of the instructors about it. So.
That's very generous as well. I feel like I have to give something back now, or I'll look terrible. I think there is a Maven code that we could probably share, isn't there, for Fullstack? Anybody who signs up with Fullstack, if they use the Maven code, I think it's 10% off that you get. So yeah, we should share that as well. But that sounds great, and obviously I know firsthand what your training's like at Maven and what you guys are like as a team. So. I would vouch entirely for what you put your students through. It's genuinely world class.
Yeah, we try. So it's a lot of fun. Well, great, Giles. I think that wraps us up. Thanks a ton for doing this. It's always a fun time talking with you, and I think it's always really valuable for both of our audiences to hear the dual perspectives. So hopefully people will take away some good learnings from this one.
I hope so. Yeah, I really hope so. It's I think we kind of end up sort of just getting into a very natural conversation, but as you say, I hope it adds value to anybody watching.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thanks a lot, John.
Great. Thanks.
Cheers.